The thing is about health and life and nutrition and weight, very often there's a sort of a dictum. If you are trying very hard to achieve very little, you're doing the wrong thing. If you are achieving a lot from doing very little, then you are doing the right thing. Losing weight is the most simple thing in the world. The difficult thing is finding out what makes it simple. Because it could literally be one single thing that you're doing wrong that changes everything. Not only can it be one thing that you're doing wrong, it can be the wrong time that you're doing something. So you could take exactly what you do at the moment, the same food that you eat at the moment, switch the order around, and it can have a completely different effect on your body and on your energy and on your sleep and on your mood. And the reason for that is something that I haven't really talked about for a very long time. Actually, I might use that board. We don't have pens for it. So back in the day, when I was a puppy, there was a book called Fit for Health. Some of the old people here might know it. And these people described something they called food hygiene. And what they said was they feel very strongly that the type of food that we eat makes a difference, but the time that we eat the food makes an even bigger difference. And that certainly has been my experience. And what they did is they said that from the way they have understood how the body works, and tests that they did at the time have shown them that the body can be divided up into three very distinct sections in a 24-hour day. So they talked about three processes that your body has to go through or goes through on a daily basis, starting with, let's start with an elimination process, which is something that your body does from about 4 o'clock in the morning till about 12 o'clock midday. Okay? So in other words, in that time, your body is getting rid of things it doesn't need, it's excreting things. Most of us will go to the bathroom or the toilet. First thing when you get up, that's when you have your best bowel movements. That's when your body is clearing out what's going on. You might wake up a bit bloated. Some people, when you've had a heavy night, have you noticed that you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you get up to go for a wee, or you'll feel thirsty, or you feel like a drink of water? But a lot of people who struggle to sleep often tell me, I sleep very well until. Then they wake up at a certain time and struggle to fall asleep again afterwards, or have a restless sleep for 2 or 3 more hours, and then they wake up and then they kind of tired and they take a while to get going again. Or you wake up and you don't feel like breakfast. Or you wake up and you feel a bit not nauseous, but just like you don't feel like food. You know, if I eat now, I'm not going to feel nice. When that's happening, then I know there's a problem with elimination. Well, it's not definitely the case with everybody, but I look at that. Then you have a period from 12 o'clock midday till about 8 o'clock at night we call the assimilation process or phase. In other words, that's the time of the day when you're supposed to be taking in nutrients for the day, food. That's the time of the day your appetite is at its peak. So a lot of people will notice that if you get up and you don't have breakfast, you start to feel hungry about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's very hard to get to 1 o'clock, no? Somewhere in the mid-morning, you start to feel, actually, the breakfast I didn't feel like earlier, now I can do with that thing. So that's normally when your assimilation phase kicks in. So your body now has used up its stores, it's gone through its elimination process, and it now is starting to want to replenish, get food for the day. But the funny thing that they found about the body is that a lot of the food that goes into your body gets digested, empties into your small intestines, only gets used by your body up to 8 hours later. So we call this from 8 o'clock at night until 4 o'clock the next morning, the appropriation phase. In other words, that's when your body is relaxed enough, supposed to be. That's when it takes all the food and the nutrients you've taken in the day. That's when it does its repair work. That's when it does its production. Most of your blood cells are produced in that time of the day. A lot of the brain chemicals are stabilized. We know all day long your brain chemicals are going up and down. We'll talk a little bit about that, I think, today. So what makes it really interesting is that it means if you could keep all your food intake from 12 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night it completely changes the way your body works with that food. It gives your body enough of a rest time to use the food you've eaten, enough of an elimination time to get rid of the waste products of life and food. It gives your gut a rest period. Now, in the modern day, they've invented a diet called the fasting diet. Heard of the fasting diet? Or you might have seen a book called the 2-5 diet. I read it backwards, I think, or the 5-2 diet. I always like to know how it ends. So the 2-5 diet works. It was only 2 pages, very simple diet. For 2 days of the week, they want you to eat 600 calories, so a very small amount of food, and only for 8 hours of the day. They normally suggest you start at 11 o'clock in the morning and finish at about 7 o'clock at night. 2 days of the week. Not every single day in a row, because the way your body works is if you keep doing something every day, it becomes accustomed to that habit. So if you've done it for 3 days, by the 4th day, your body expects it. So most of you will relate to that thing. When you started the program, the first 3 days are the hardest. By the 4th day, it's actually not so hard anymore. You really miss your stuff for the first few days, and you don't miss it so much anymore. Now you get to a place 8, 9, 10 years since you started the program, and it feels long. It's not just me. So long into the program, there were things that you thought when you started the program, I will never give this up. Now if somebody offers it to you, you're like, well, I'm okay. I don't feel like that thing. It just went away. So part of that is just your body's processes changing and the addiction going away. And that's a bit of your gut health that we've touched on. But this thing, and the reason I'm kind of talking about it is because I listened to talk yesterday morning about how your adrenal glands work. And this doctor reminded me of this research that I'd read before, where he actually showed that people who eat, because this is going to be a shocker, wait, are you all sitting? If you eat carbohydrates before bedtime, your melatonin, the drug that helps you to sleep, goes up, and your cortisol, the drug that the hormone, the chemical that makes you feel awake in the morning, goes up in the morning. So it goes down while you sleep, but it rises higher. So he did a test on about 50 different people, and he showed almost without fail that they all had higher cortisol levels the next morning. In other words, what does that mean to you? It means felt more awake when they woke up. Didn't have that like blurry, fuzzy drive to work. I can't remember how I got here. I know I only start to work at 10. I just practice my words the night before so that nobody picks up on the fact that I'm actually fast asleep. So this happens at about 10 o'clock in the morning. For those people who don't have this proper cortisol kick. And we sometimes blame the thyroid for that, and that is definitely a hormone or an organ that plays a role in this daytime rhythm that you have. So for those of you who still have not sworn off carbs, which I hope is nobody. So I don't believe a world exists where you can have no carbs. It's good luck if you can achieve it, but it's very difficult in practice. So we can certainly swear off the carbs that have no real value, and those are normally your sugary carbs, your very refined sugars, the stuff that you eat that you just need more and more and more of. So, and I'm not necessarily talking about Albany's white bread so that you can have it with a big chunk of cheese or honey or something before you go to bed. I'm talking about something like rice or potatoes. We talked a little bit about cold rice, cold potatoes, foods that are colder, that take a while for your body to use. So if that's your problem, if you feel like, but I couldn't eat better than I'm eating, I hardly have any carbs, then I want you for this week just to try that small switch. A lot of us, you will all know this thing. A lot of us get into the habit of having our carbs for either for breakfast or for lunch, or a snack that we try and justify through the day. Bar one, but there's only one. So, because the doctor said you can have no snacks bar one. And that's quite a good English joke. Well, very nice, very nice, highly English. So, what happens is that we tend to be good with we don't eat a lot during the day. Most of us cheat at night. That's the hardest time for everybody. And then when we do eat, we eat the wrong kinds of sugars. But a lot of us that are really in the zone will manage to have the piece of meat with the vegetables or the salad for night. And we leave the carbs out at night very easily. And it's an interesting little, just a shift in the way that you're doing it. So the interesting thing about low glycemic index carbs, thick, dense, heavier carbs, is that when you're getting them in just the right amount, your body doesn't crave for the refined sugars as much. And if it's true what we say about the elimination processes and the adrenal processes, you might find that you sleep better because your body's getting a nice little bit of a supply of sugar from the rice that you had. I'm not talking about a pile of rice here. I'm talking about your baby's fist. Small. Spoonfuls, 4 tablespoonfuls of rice, a hint of rice. You know what normally falls out of the salt pot? That much rice, yes.
So what time do you have?
So the cutoff time is before 8 o'clock at night. Yeah. So about 3 hours before bedtime. So in other words, you don't want your stomach to be actively digesting food when you go to bed, because that's not good for the people that reflux or that have heartburn. So you kind of want your stomach, the major work needs to be done, which is about 3 to 4 hours. And then that carb sits there. Because the funny thing is, I haven't planned this so far, so we're just going to see how far it goes. A lot of people who do the Banting type of diet might have heard or read about ketosis. So have you heard of ketosis? Anybody? Ketosis is when your body burns these ketone bodies. It's not sugar, it's ketones. It's a different type of a fuel. It's broken down from proteins or fats. Now, because I'm on the Facebooky thing and I'm seeing what people are writing and saying, I see that there's sometimes a misinterpretation of what this means. So let me straight, you guys will be the clever ones. This is the truth. When your body burns ketones, it does not mean you will lose weight. That's the first thing. You can bend your ass off and you won't necessarily burn fat. Your body will manage its energy supply, but it won't necessarily burn the excess, which is what everybody kind of wants who are here to do, who want to lose weight. You might feel more energetic. You might feel better, sleep better. Your mood might be better, because those things are managed by in a ketosis. You might feel clearer in your thinking, memory better, concentrate better, but you don't necessarily have to burn fat. The other thing about ketosis, I mean, you are burning fat, but your body's too efficient for us. It burns tiny bits of fat to keep you going for hours and hours and hours. So we know that you can survive 90 days without food. So I mean, that's without food. So it takes your body days and days and days to just burn grams of fat. So that's the good news for tonight. Everybody enjoying it so far? The other thing then that you need to know is that when we are in ketosis, so I've removed carbohydrates from my diet, you do not enter an environment where your body now no longer needs glucose. Your body will always need glucose. And your body will make glucose. It will deliver it into your system from your liver and from that part of your muscle. And remember we talked about glycogen? So this is a kind of a sugar that your body has relatively rapid access to. If you're not active, it breaks it down quite slowly. So what happens is your sugar levels will stabilize, not go low, stabilize. And your body controls your sugar. So that means for the period that you are not eating carbohydrates, your body will make sure enough sugar is delivered into your system minute for minute to make sure that you always have insulin working in your body, because if the insulin stops working and the sugar flow stops, so does your breathing, so does your heart, and so does your brain. Not always in that order. You know, some of you have mother-in-laws, you know what I'm talking about. So I wouldn't tell that if my mother-in-law was here. And I will have to apologize in case she watches the video. I'm very sorry about that. It seemed funny when I thought it. So the point is that ketosis doesn't equal fat loss, because it's a slow process. And it also doesn't mean that you have no sugar in your system. So you have a process. You want to learn a fancy word? It's called gluconeogenesis or glycogenolysis. These are the two words which you will never remember that mean that your body is able to make glucose, produce glucose, and secrete it into your circulation 24 hours a day. So when you say, I think we've talked a bit about this before, when you say I'm feeling a little low, I think my sugar's low and I need the bar 1. We've all been in this trap in the past. Then you eat something and you feel better. Then you go, you see, that confirms my sugar was low. But it doesn't. it confirms that your adrenals were low, and when you take in the sugar, you spike a bit of insulin, you spike a bit of cortisol, and you feel a bit better. It actually has nothing to do with your sugar, which is weird, because you've heard your mom say that when you were like 3, the first words you could remember was her saying, I just need a little sugar to get me over whatever. So we think we need sugar, you don't. Your body is absolutely capable, unless you're diabetic. And diabetic who's dependent on insulin, your body will make the sugar, the glucose, it will introduce it into your system, and it will keep it at 5 millimoles per liter. It will keep it at a precise amount 24 hours a day. It doesn't go up and it doesn't go down. When you eat, it goes up a little. When you don't eat for a long time, it stabilizes. It never goes away. So was that something that was really confusing you? Good, glad we got that out of the way then. At the end of the day, weight gain and weight loss probably has nothing to do with food. You have to come back next week from the end of that. How do I know that? I know that because you all know that. Because you are all eating better than you used to eat. And how many of you are skilling the kilograms off week for week for week? None. How many of you were thin before and might gain weight when you start eating properly? How many of you were thin and you don't keep losing weight? So what happens? If it was really about food and I stopped eating, then or I ate properly, what will happen to you? You'll just get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, but you don't. In fact, what you've noticed is you lost faster, you lost weight maybe nicely in the beginning, but then slower and slower and slower, and then it stopped, maybe centimeters. So that's because of dehydration, and that's because of a little bit of toning of muscles. But when you stand on the scale, nothing changes. So that's why the body fat assessments that Lee talked about last week, body fat percentage becomes much more important to know about. Body fluid content. I can test that. If you want to have that test, we do a test at OakMed, which is a bioimpedance assessment. It looks at your body fat, your body fluid, and your muscle mass. It tells me what there is to lose and what was there before. It tells me, not as specifically, I can't tell the difference between your muscles and your bones, but I can tell which parts of your body are burning energy and which parts are not burning energy. I can tell if there's an excess of fluid or a dehydration, a deficiency of fluid. So a lot of us who's swinging weight 1 to 2 kilograms up and down, there's adrenal things, there's hormone things, and there's fluid retention things. Nothing to do with your food at all. Your food's spiking these things, but it's not actually causing them. Okay, just so that you're confused enough. Let's see what we're going to talk about today. So you're not dead yet. Just because you're fat, this is not your destiny. It doesn't mean you need to phone them and order yourself a big coffin. This is something that you need to understand about the way that your body works. Inside of the frame exists the original person. You can hear him at night screaming out to you to be set free. The reason I show this picture is to just make one point. The stuff around the guy creates the excuse to eat. I eat more because I'm a big guy. The truth is, you're not a big guy. There's always a little guy inside of you, and this is the part we call the energy consuming, or on my test it's called active tissue mass, the part that burns fuel. That's the only part that needs to be fed. All the rest is overfeeding and storage by the body. So bigger people do not need to eat more. Men need to eat more than women because men burn the energy faster because of the way their hormones work, but not necessarily because they are bigger or smaller. Okay, we talk about different types of fat, and I just thought I'd show you a little bit about this because it does make a very big difference where your fat is, because it also helps me to tell you what's wrong with you. If you're a really thin person, but you can pinch the fat in your tummy, then you've got this fat here, subcutaneous fat. If you can feel your six-pack, but it's standing over here in front of you, then you've got this fat, visceral fat. Visceral fat means it's the fat around your organs, inside your body. Men have this fat a lot. That's why you've heard me, maybe I haven't talked to you guys, but men have big bellies. You look at them from the back, they look like they could, fall through the cracks in the platform, or not platform, in the terrace, the deck. But they turn sideways, and you go, "Woo, that's the day." There's a reason he has to stand further away from the bride these days, because that smell is something burning. No lovey. So, this is the visceral fat. This is a problem for us boys. Those are especially the men who are skinny their whole lives, and then we start to become stressed, busy, eat bad, sleep bad, drink too much, eat too much, and our body just stores the fat inside our bodies and gives us a nice big beer bellies or boops. The girls don't always have boops. You are very fortunate, and I know you don't think of it that way, but you pack your fat on all over. So you're more like a plasticine kind of a doll. So this is because your body is actually designed to be an incubator. The purpose of your existence is to have babies. That's it. We only actually need you for 9 months every now and again. After that, you think that's bad. You only need me for a couple of seconds every couple of months. So luckily we don't decide our values as human beings based on that criteria. You could take most men and shelve them from about 35 and just say, "We'll call you when we need you." A lot of insects just eat the men, and I don't think they taste nice. It's just really more pleasant afterwards. So this is what we look like with our body fat percentages. And I show you this for an interesting reason. You'll notice that a 15%, which sounds like really very little fat, but what do you see? Does that woman look healthy to you? She actually looks a bit skinny. But a man at 8%, which is half of the 15, he's skinny, but he's actually quite well toned. He doesn't look as unhealthy with a much lower body fat percentage. In fact, a man only starts looking fat from somewhere about 20% on. A woman at 25% still looks very skinny because of the way that her fat is distributed all over. Look at where the man is starting to get his little belly. So look at the legs right through to the end. Thin binkies. But the boopie, the belly. So a man can still feel pretty good and look pretty good in clothes, right up to 25% body fat. The girls, you can look good up to 30% body fat. In other words, that's still actually quite normal for you. But from 30% on, you can start to see, you're starting to get a bit broad at the hips, the nice curves are starting to disappear, you're getting the saddlebags on the side. Is this too depressing? Okay, so the saddlebags are starting to grow, the arms are starting to get a little bit more hangy. When you do this, it takes 30 seconds to stop even when you're holding. So I look at you, when you come and see me, I look at you to see how are you putting on your weight. Where is it on your body? Because it tells me if it's a subcutaneous or if it's visceral. Is it around your hips? Is it on your back, on your neck, on your face? Are your breasts getting bigger or smaller? Because depending on where you're putting on weight, we talk about something called body composition. Different types of problems put weight on in different types of ways. So if a woman comes in with a big boop, in other words, she's putting on weight like a man, then it's normally a food problem. Eats too much. When a woman puts on big flappy arms, the thighs are getting bigger, the saddlebags are getting bigger, the bum's starting to hang a little bit lower, then that's often a hormone-related thing. It might have started with food, but it normally doesn't. It normally starts with an imbalance, then it becomes about food, then you overweight, then you become sick or sicker. So you might not have been sick, you were imbalanced. Then you started eating badly because you had cravings, because you had mood issues, because your cycle was out of control, so you swelled. An interesting thing about swelling is that, ladies, if you swell, eventually your body will grow into that swelling. So that's quite scary. But a lot of us your skin becomes more elastic when you swell, and often so it starts to create space for fat to be dumped in those areas, and so you will start to put on weight. That's why women can start to develop your skankles and things, your legs. Eventually, they start staying fat like that. So in the beginning, when you swell, it's a big thing, out and in, and out and in. But later on, it's just out a bit, and then in just in a bit, and then it's just out all the time. Okay, enough of the good news. Next time we come, we are handing out antidepressants before we even start. Okay, so the point of this thing is the way that the composition has also changed between the men and the women. So unfortunately for the ladies, a man really starts to only look fat at 35%, but by the time a woman at 35% still looks quite good. At 45%, you have major metabolic disorders. So the other problem is that by a man who's here can really diet very easily. Just changing his diet can help him to lose weight very quickly. A woman that's here, this is now a massive overhaul. So your hormones are now out, your adrenals are out, your thyroid is out, your appetite, your gut. There's a lot of problems by the time you get to this point. It's hard work to go backwards. This is what the stuff looks like on the inside. So the fat on the outside here is called the subcutaneous fat. And the fat on the inside here is called the visceral fat. But here's an interesting thing. Ladies, you get to win something in this competition. Remember, we've got the visceral fat, the inside around the organs fat. That's the fat that kills us. That's the fat that makes us diabetics. That's the fat that causes our blood circulation to change and gives us heart attacks. So we get sick because of where we have fat. We call this very inflammation accelerating fat. It makes us sick. Your fat, it might not look pretty to you in the mirror, but it's actually not going to kill you. It's actually quite a safe fat. But that's kind of, because our fat is so active and so involved in our process, our life process, it's easy for us to lose. Because your fat is just a resting place for retired fat particles, it's very hard to lose. Have you ever tried to get, someone at the old age home to train for the comrades? It's like, but I've done everything. Ek wil net bietjie lê. And this is the fat that is pasted on your bum. It's a hard fat to burn. And I'm sorry, I didn't invent this. I just report this, okay? I try to help you, but men are actually easy to fix because it's inflammation and it's a very active fat. It's still very involved in what's happening. Another just wildly interesting thing that's probably quite forgettable, call this something for the next Trivial Pursuit game you play. The fat up here, we call pleomorphic. Pleomorphic fat can change into other body tissues. It can become bone, muscle, or fat. It's active. It changes. That's why your waist circumference is still an important measure of your health. And if I want to know, are you getting better in your weight loss effort, I want to know your weight a bit. I want to know your height a bit, because that gives me BMI, body mass index. But if I want to know if you're getting healthier, I want to know your fluid content, body fluid content. I want to know your body fat percentage. I want to know your hip circumference, your waist circumference, and I want to know the ratio between the two. And there's another test we don't use very often, which is a waist to height ratio as well. So a lot more information about how healthy you are is told to us by the waist circumference as and a ratio to your height, not so much your weight to your height. Because why? The weight is a measure of everything. It's not specific enough. But a waist measurement, your belt measurement, is far more indicative. It gives me more information about what's happening to you. So when you come to be weighed, all you've got to do is tighten your belt a bit. Because then I say, yes, it's doing lekker. And then you breathe afterwards. So look at these two girls. You might recognize them. So the truth is, the shapes of women could fill a fruit bowl. But we have picked these two. So The pear shape, the reason we've kind of done it is because there's a lot of overlaps in all of them. But if you want to get very broadly, we kind of say there's the two shapes have different problems and different ways to lose weight. So let's look at the different types. Mrs. Apple, you don't have to put your hand up. How do you know if you're an apple? Your waist has probably always been a little bit either straighter or wider than your hips. Okay. So you guys tend to be the ones who have more food problems, nutrition problems, hunger problems, insulin resistance problems, diabetes problems. You have this condition, metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome describes your cholesterol levels, your waist circumference, your body fat percentages. So you have problems with cholesterol and blood pressure. You do lose weight easily when you eat properly, but you can also regain the weight easily. But your weight gain and your shape is a lot more like a man. So we talk about android shapes. You do respond well to low or no carb diets. So this is my clue. After you've tried the paleo and the Banting and maybe a Mediterranean or whatever, then I'm thinking of a joke that I've decided not to tell. You notice the silence? Okay. I'm never not thinking. It's the problem, yeah. Sure. So anyway, the pear ladies, you guys tend to be the more hormone problems. You're more sensitive to the hormone contraceptives. You're more sensitive to the hormone replacement therapies as you get older. It's unfortunately not easy for you to lose weight. Your thyroid is often involved. But you do have more cancers. This is generalizations. You are allowed to have cancer and diabetes at the same time. But we do know that when you control your weight, you avoid these conditions more. So I know an apple who keeps their weight maintained avoids diabetes. I know a pear that maintains her weight avoids cancer, which is very important, because that's something we're all kind of scared of. You know, that day that the doctor says that lump was not just something we felt. You tend to have the hormone things. The pears, interestingly enough, although as a species we like the pear shape, often the pear shapes don't have babies easily. And they have hormone and cycle problems. Remember, it's a generalization. Hey? It's not certainly true for everybody. But we do like the shape. It looks good. Okay, have you learned enough about that? Do you want to learn something else, or just want to go home now? One more thing. Got 15 more minutes. How many of you, okay, here's a question. How many of you let's make it a longer time. How many of you last ate something at lunchtime today? 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Okay, a bit more honesty. How many of you skip lunch on the day that you're coming to BetYaLife so that you can weigh a little bit less? Serious. Okay, yes, good. Bad, but I know it happens. How many of you go to the toilet before you come and weigh yourselves? Yes, I thought so. And in future, we're going to charge more to the people that take their wallets out before they weigh. Because obviously, if you think that's making a big difference, we're not charging you enough, because it's too heavy, no? So, if you come to the meeting and you're tired, sometimes it is just because you've tried to stretch it too long because you're too focused on the weight thing. How many have I convinced in this room that your weight is not the important thing? Okay, thanks, all three of you. So we definitely want to, but that's good. I'm happy about that. So I've got 3 more sessions to completely convince those of you. In fact, if you put your hand up now, you don't have to come back again. The rest of you, 6 o'clock here next week, for a 2-hour session, obviously. You're going to have to really boot camp it into you. So let's talk a little bit about this part of your body. We're going to talk a little bit about the stress thing. Let's see if I can do this in 15 minutes. So I wanted to just show you another part of your body that has a big role to play in your body's ability to lose weight, gain weight, or that controls your appetite and controls your energy. So So these are two systems in your body that, don't worry about this chart, it's just to show you the two colors so that there's two sides to it. These are two systems in your body that work in balance with each other. We talk about a sympathetic and a parasympathetic part of a system called autonomic. In other words, you don't control it. It controls you. It tells you how much acid you must make. It tells you when you must be asleep and when you must be awake. It tells you that you must breathe, or it tells your heart to beat, or it controls your heartbeat. It controls your circulation. It controls your blood pressure. It controls the tears in your eyes. It controls the saliva production. It controls your palpitations, anxiety. It makes you yawn when you haven't got enough carbon dioxide. It makes you sneeze when something tickles your nose. It makes you feel stressed when you didn't, when your boss is hunting or on the warpath. It makes you hungry or feel like you need to eat something when you think your blood sugar is low. It makes you also run away from danger. So this is the sympathetic system. It sounds like it feels sorry for you a little bit, eh? It's like, aww, but it doesn't. So the sympathetic system works hand in hand with your adrenal system. Your adrenal system is the little glands that sit above your kidneys that makes adrenaline and cortisol. So you've heard of the fight or flight response. The immediate danger, suddenly, it doesn't matter how you felt. In that instant, you are awake, you're alert, you can see better, your pupils dilate, you can see better, you can hear better. You suddenly, if you were starving before, it is not important. If you desperately needed the toilet, not so important, or worse, you just go. So your body stops all non-essential functions. If you really felt like sex, but then you hear somebody jump over the back wall, suddenly you don't feel like sex anymore, or you do it just quickly. Depends if it's the man or the woman, I suppose. But essentially, it's the thing that says, fire, stop everything unnecessary. Your life is now in immediate danger. Get out, run, move, or prepare to defend yourself. Fight or flight. It's stimulated by adrenaline. It makes you stronger. It makes you jump higher, run faster. It makes everything just work wonderfully. You cannot maintain it. It's too hard to maintain. It takes an enormous amount of energy to be that way, and your body can't keep you feeling that way, which is quite good because your heart rate goes up and your blood pressure goes up as well. Fight or flight. The opposite thing, this is quite an easy part of my talk. So remember everything I just said? So the parasympathetic is opposite of all of that. So where do you experience parasympathetic? When you have a calm night's sleep. When you listen to orchestral music. When you meditate. When you're reading a nice book. When you're playing an instrument. When you're gardening. When you're riding on a bicycle on a road where people aren't driving over you. So I ride bike. I used to, but it's something between the two. Here comes a truck, I didn't die. And then parasympathetic, here comes another truck, I didn't die. It's not fun. It stopped being fun. So we also talk about this as a rest and digest phase of your evening. Now, I want to refer back to what I said to you in the beginning. Remember, when your body starts assimilate means take it in. Appropriate means use what you've taken in. So your appropriation phase starts at 8 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning, when you're supposed to be relaxing. One of the reasons people who do night shifts really struggle with energy, mood, and weight is because this system is completely democard. You're not supposed to be awake at night. You can, if you are awake every night for those certain number of hours, you can slowly turn your system to start to work with the hours that you've chosen. But the worst kind of night shifts is probably the most common, is 2 nights on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, kind of this weird kind of on-off thing. So the nurses have gotten it better. So you'll generally find with nurses, they work 7 nights on and then 7 nights off. So they kind of can get into a bit of a routine. But they're never well, and they smoke a lot, and they drink caffeine. And often it's because just boredom and needing to stay awake. And because it's horrible to work at night. Nobody likes to work at night. I mean, you must be weird to want to work at night. I worked at Max Steel for a long time as the doctor. And Max Steel works 24 hours a day. The factory never closes down. And I always think, how does a man feel at 3 o'clock in the morning when he has to stand next to a machine that takes a flat piece of steel and presses it into a piece of tin roofing, a corrugated iron roof? That's his job at 3 o'clock in the morning, as though that's some kind of an emergency. It destroys his entire life. It's a job, so we're grateful that there's a job, but it must be very mind-numbingly hard to do that. As a doctor working night shifts, you often just say, at least I'm saving lives, I'm helping people. Babies have an incredibly irritating habit of wanting to be born in the early hours of the morning. But anyway, there's a reason babies want to be born early hours of the morning, because that's when the mother's cortisol levels start to go up. So often that's why she goes into labor. The most common time for heart attacks is from 4 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning, because of this rhythm that's happening as your body starts to swing from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic. So there's a slight shift to the more, now you need to move, now you need to hurry to get to work, now you need to drive in the traffic, now you need to eat quickly. How many of you sit down and have breakfast? Anybody? Serious? I don't mean in your car. Hands down if you meant in your car. How many of you put your makeup on in your car? How many of you wake up and the first thing you do is you check your emails, your Facebook, no? So we've gotten into incredibly bad habits. We like to switch on our stress like that. How many times do you read an email just before you go to bed and go, I'm sorry, that's the end of tonight. Thank you very much for coming. And you read this email, and you're supposed to be going into your rest and digest, your calm, relaxing appropriation phase. Please try and use that in conversation. It makes you sound very fancy. Excuse me, I must leave. I need to appropriate. It sounds like something you need paper for, I know. But no, anyway. So it is very, very fancy. So you want to keep those processes. So you want to do stuff that doesn't stress you, so that your body can maximize its healing, maximize the use of its nutrients, so that it can build up to maximize its elimination phase. So you want what's going to go in and to stay. You want what must come out to go out and to get out easily. So calming yourself and using these two systems to work with you and for you is part of what this is about. I've kind of gone through the different parts that it controls: breathing, your stomach, your liver functions, your kidney functions, your bladder. You think you go to the toilet and you pass urine, make a wee, but you don't. So you just go there and then you go, wee? No, you don't. It's just, how does it know when it must come out? It just knows, hey? You don't go, actually, if you do that, please come and see me. But it's just, there's a part of your brain, and you know how few people that breaks? Hardly anybody. We see it sometimes in our paraplegics and our quadriplegics, that they lose their control. But funny enough, even in quadriplegics, people who have no control of the body whatsoever, they can control things like erections and their bladder function. They know. I worked with a quadriplegic once who used to become anxious. He started to sweat, and he started to become irritable when he needed the toilet. He didn't know he needed the toilet. Something started to happen. It's called sympathetic hyperreflexia. I'm only bragging now. Did you know that, Mark? So sympathetic hyperreflexia. So it's just a word I had to remember because it sounds so cool to say that. But this is his autonomic system, the system that's supposed to warn you that something needs to go down or come out of you. It was still working, but it was a little bit off. He couldn't tell where it was coming from. He just knew. You all know that feeling when you're driving to Pretoria and you need a wee. And suddenly the conversation is just not so interesting anymore because you start looking for toilets. No? Which bush? That one's not close enough. That one's, I think we can make. How long to the next stop? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Yeah, there. Suddenly you don't care what music's on the radio. You don't care that you've won $1 million, turn around now and go to Cape Town. No! toilet eerde. So everything in the world becomes unimportant because your sympathetic autonomic system is starting to take over. There's an emergency about to happen, and your body must resolve that problem before anything else. You will literally kill yourself trying to solve that problem. You become irrational in that phase. You will pull off the road. You'll do U-turns. You'll do dangerous stuff. Some of us like that feeling, so we buy motorbikes. We also have a parasympathetic. This is the opposite system. Now I've had my weed. So one of my doctor friends, I remember, boys, we always stand next to each other when we go to the toilet. Maybe I should do it this way. So I'm not going to do hands. I'm just going to put my hands here. So we stand next to each other and we're talking about why is it that we need to go to the toilet every few hours. It's actually really irritating. A little bit of a design change could have meant we had like a 1 or 2 liter pouch so that you could go once a day. That would be so handy because everywhere you go, you have to find a toilet. No, it's a stupid thing. So, and they took all the bushes away because it used to be easy. There's a tree, let's pee. So, oh, sorry, that's a man thing. Oh, sorry, ladies. Anyway, so back to men. So, I forgot what I was going to say now. About the tree. Oh, so we're talking about why you need to empty your bladder. So, do you know why you have to empty your bladder? First, so that you can walk somewhere. This was invented before there were cigarettes. So you can get out of where you are and go and do something. So it was just to activate your body. Because imagine if you didn't have to wee, you would sit in a chair for hours and hours and hours. How often is the only reason you get up is because you need to go to the toilet? When we want to get people out of the hospital, when they're starting to irritate us a little bit, you know what we do? We move them further from the toilets. Because it's amazing. If the toilet's right here, it's lekker, I'm going to stay 3 more days. It's just sharp here. But once he has to walk down the passage, carrying, closing, pushing the things, like, I want to go home now. So, now you know our secrets. Do you think we know how to sew those things closed at the back? We just don't feel like it. So, again, you're getting very distracted. So the thing is, so why can't you just have a pouch that holds a day's worth of urine? Because what better feeling in the world is there than emptying a full bladder? Huh? It's like, it's just over there. It's like that's when you understand God and just peace and love and relief. So many emotions. And you can have that 6 times a day, people. Free. It's better than drugs. Anyway, so that was the doctor's theory of why you need to pee all the time. We're still doing research on that. I think we've probably almost heard enough. That's just another picture. So that if you get this one I put in there because it just showed it nice. If you did want to look at the slides afterwards, I won't ask. How do you calm yourself? I'll just flick through these to show you. It's so important to lose weight, to be as often as possible and as many hours of the day as possible in a parasympathetic state, a state of calm, where your breathing is stable, your heart rate is stable, your blood pressure is low, and you feel good. Peace, fresh air. This is one of the reasons the human being is very attracted to the great outdoors, mountains, views, sceneries, because there's a calm that comes with that place. We like to watch sunrises, but we like even more to watch sunsets because you don't have to get up early for those. We like pictures like this because there's a peace. There's a serenity. There's noises, but they're not irritating noises. They're bubbly noises. They're just calming noises. We talk about white noises that are there but not irritating. And that is pretty. Hey, there's nobody in this room that goes, that oak needs to get into his garden. It's like, whoa, I need that garden. This, I just put there because it's interesting, but playing music is, interestingly enough, one of the most calming activities a human being can do. There's a reason we all like music. There's a reason our musicians are wealthy, because we feel something with music. We don't hear something with music. It calms our systems down, even wild music. So the thing is, often the music plays at a frequency that suits you. And once you can coordinate or synchronize the frequency of the music to the frequency of your mind, it can calm you. That's why even somebody who's listening to trance music or Skrillex or horrible, loud, noisy, thumpy, bumpy music can experience complete peace and calm in that moment. But we also all appreciate that classical music, a Beethoven and a Bach kind of a thing, is very relaxed. Enya. Who doesn't like Enya in this room? Just don't put up your hand. But there's something about Celtic and just... It's a bit mosquito-ish, I get it, but that's probably just the way I did that. So music, the reason music is calming is because it's repetitive. It's engaging your hands and your mind at the same time. Because that's a problem for a lot of us, hey? When our hands aren't doing something, then we like to pick up these days something, a device. Watch your husband. How often does your husband sit the whole night watching TV with a remote in his hand? What's that about? Are you going to just like, I need to change the channel. Did you see that? It could happen. You just don't know. So, this is something else. This is called balancing on a rock. There's a fancy word, I forget it. No, it's called yoga. Didn't catch that. Okay, so yoga is, of all the exercises you can do, the most stimulating to the parasympathetic system because it's involving, again, it's a whole mind, body, spirit experience. So all of you is engaged. You're not thinking about emails and Facebook and the television program. You're not thinking about, excuse me, you're not thinking about tomorrow. You're not thinking about the fact that you aren't going to meet the budget. You are engaged. They force you or teach you to think about posing. And it's difficult poses because when you're trying to do this, it's also hard to think about, I don't know if the cash book balanced. There's always, who bought an extra coffee? I don't know. Okay, I'm obviously not that good at it. I'm practicing. This is actually me in this photo. So, can you tell me over time? I'm talking. So, yoga, the ladies, stressed, wired, and tired. You swing between the two. Very quickly irritated, very irritable, depressed. Your moods are out of control. This is the exercise I want you to do. I don't want you to run up lion's head as fast as you can, because that is actually sympathetic, stressful. So exercise can put you in the wrong frame of mind or control the wrong systems. I want you to rest and digest. This is the best weight loss lecture you've ever been to. Don't do anything. Just sit there. Balance, and this is obviously the hardest thing for most of us because we do have pressure from all over, and I think cell phones, laptops, televisions have destroyed our chances at ever being balanced. And you know where it's the most obvious in our children, because you know how they float from a screen to a screen. It's unbelievable. They don't know what to do when there's nothing in front of them. So they constantly need stimulation. And then we wonder why all our children are hyperactive, but they don't rest. They don't digest. So a lot of our hyperactive children, we switch off electronic stuff. Children that don't sleep, switch off electronic stuff. Children that have gastrointestinal problems, hyperactivity disorders, rest and digest. The children need to be coached, trained, forced into doing something calming and relaxing. But the funny thing is, I don't know if my children represent all children. They definitely don't. But if I say to my children, do you want to learn to play a musical instrument? Why? Hit the button here, look, an iPad plays it perfectly. Or what? They don't feel like they need to do creative things anymore. It's not a must, it's not a need. They don't have to go to movies because their PlayStation looks more real than the movie I watched last night. In fact, I've seen movies that I go, this is so real, it's almost like PlayStation. Anyway, so our children are going to have a much bigger problem than we have. Or not. So what might happen is that maybe our children are the first generation that goes overboard and actually realizes, okay, we can't do this anymore. I think we're still experimenting because we can still remember I can still remember a time when there was no TV. So we're one of the first generations to be flooded with electronics, and it's all new and it's exciting and it's cool. But our kids are kind of like, so it's normal, it's every day. So I think maybe their generation will fix it. I think they're going to have to. Meditation calms the parasympathetic. You can literally lose weight while you meditate and breathe, because you know what it controls? Your heart rate, your blood pressure, your insulin, your sympathetic system, your adrenal glands, and your cortisol. As your cortisol comes down, your need for food goes down. Have you noticed that when you exercise, if you go for a bicycle ride for an hour, when you finish that, you're actually not hungry? Because your body's in a perfect state of equilibrium. You're balanced. Your liver is producing enough sugar. You might be in a nice ketosis state. Your body's providing enough energy from fat. You're absolutely calm. You've got to try to stay there. And simple things like this. The 2-4-1 is just an exercise. It's a ratio that you take 2 seconds to breathe in, or 2 counts. Breathe in for 2, hold for 4, breathe out for 1. And you just repeat that. Remember, part of meditation is to try to not to be distracted, and the easiest way to do that is to think about your breathing. I did a very interesting exercise with a guy who wanted to challenge my thinking about something, and he told me, while I'm going to talk you through the situation, and while I'm talking, I'm going to ask you to hold your breath. So I hold my breath, and he starts to talk about this event which has a negative impact in my life, and it's not a very big thing. So I fell in a race, and I was embarrassed, and I hurt myself. But I didn't feel like running after that. So he starts to talk through this thing, and I'm holding my breath, and he's talking through this thing, and I'm holding my breath, and he's telling me about, remember how sore your toe was, and you thought you'd broken your foot, and how disappointed you trained so hard. I'm like, yeah, but holding my breath here. And he keeps talking. I'm like, did you forget that you asked me to hold my breath? And at a point, I just go, I stopped listening to him, because what happened? I'm dying, okay? Not to hear the end of the story, but actually dying. And I breathe. And then the idea of the psychology is that something that seemed so important to you a few seconds ago, when you're faced with actual death, you can't breathe. Parts of my body are starting to shut down. There's tingling, there's weirdness. You completely get distracted to the other side, and you go, you know what, that actually was a really minor thing. So I hurt my little toe, same, okay? But that's still better than death. Interesting exercise, but it has to do with breathing. It has to do with focusing on the stuff that keeps you alive, and we can learn from this and develop from this. Sleep, you cannot underestimate the value of sleep. Remember, elimination is from 12 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning. You might have heard your granny say that the hours you sleep before 12 count double. Have you heard people say that? Okay, that's nonsense. But the more time you give your body to eliminate, the better. So it's better for you. Now, don't look at me. This is probably my worst habit. But if you could sleep earlier and get up earlier, you would lose weight easier. This has been both the worst night at your weight loss class and the best. Don't do the stimulants in the morning. If you are needing to wake yourself up, there is a problem with your assimilation, appropriation, or elimination, your cortisol. This is a story, I don't have time to tell a story. I think we're going to stop there. I'll come back to that story. Does it look interesting enough? Do you want to know more? Do you? No. No, really? Is it going to stress you? But it's a long story. It's going to take 20 minutes. Who was now? Okay, last story. But really, that's because you forced me. The story is just, this is how your parasympathetic works. This is just the story of the parasympathetic system. If you were walking in the jungle as giraffes do, and a lion comes out of the bushes, the giraffe kicks into a sympathetic mode. Run for your life. Actually, it's probably not true, because I don't think they're scared of lions. But imagine this giraffe is very scared of lions. So he runs through the forest, and he looks for a tree to climb to get away from the lion. And his adrenaline is pumping, and his heart's pumping, and his blood pressure's up. And he has these very neat giraffe droppings right there where he saw the lion. But then, because his system unloads the unnecessary and focuses on the necessary, and off he goes. He forgets about the lack of leaf he was just about to pick off the tree. Unimportant. Runs and climbs the tree. Now here's the problem with all of us. We understand escape, risk, and danger. Where we start to collapse is, now you climb the tree. The lion can't get you now. You are safe. But the lion lies down at the bottom of the tree. So your stress is not, the immediate threat is over, but the stress is not over. So you have a different system, the parasympathetic system, sympathetic system. The sympathetic still controls what's happening. Because while you're stuck in the tree, You can't afford to be thirsty. You can't afford to be hungry. You can't be thinking about going for a jog in the morning. Your appetite can't be normal. You certainly don't feel like having sex while you're up in the tree and the lion's at the bottom. So all the things that are unnecessary start to slow down or disappear. They become unimportant because you need to survive, and so you go into survival mode. But if you stay in that tree too long, you actually don't even notice sometimes when the lion's walked away. Because it's actually quite a stimulating environment. A lot of people get that feeling. I get people who tell me, I have a very stressful job, doc, but I like it because otherwise I feel tired. So the weekends they sleep, but the weekdays they wakker. And it's because you are depending on your sympathetic system to keep you going. You're stimulating yourself with coffee and with stimulants like BioPlus to try to keep you going, but actually you've overextended yourself. You've gone past your capacity, and you're now using drugs to keep you going. And you need to come back to the place where you look down and go, but there's no lion here anymore. There is not this rush. Wait, we probably don't need emergency corrugated iron roof sheets. Because I don't think Max Steel, I know this, I work there. They don't get a lot of calls at 3 in the morning. So we have to have roof sheets by 3 o'clock. Otherwise, heads will roll, people will die, and rain will come in. So there's never going to be a corrugated iron roof sheeting emergency. Never. We will try to make one. You know why? Because the guy who's ordering the corrugated roof sheets is sympathetic. He's in a rushed, stressed state. So when he orders his roof sheets, he thinks he needs it tomorrow because he's stressed. And we're all trying to do that. We're trying to deliver. We're trying to run to phones to answer them. You might have noticed I don't answer my phone a lot. Anybody ever phoned me? Have I ever picked it up? But that's why it takes messages. It's a brilliant thing. Nobody said you have to answer your phone. Nobody said you have to answer an email. You are not obliged to do it. If it disturbs your peace, then you can look at that email and go, tonight I'm losing weight. While I appropriate, I mail you tomorrow. And that's all I'm going to tell you tonight. So this week is about being cool and being calm and relaxing. Enjoy your food. Change it around a little bit. Be exciting. Thank you so much.